Well, welcome everyone and good morning, and thank you so much for joining me today for my dissertation defense, which explores a student-directed approach to help teachers support the diverse needs of students in inclusive educational settings. And so there are really two different needs or two different problems that I've identified. The first is that needs sometimes are not efficiently identified early due to different varying policies, provincial policies, and also when the support is provided, the strategies may not be effective because if the student is not involved in the process or if they may feel stigmatized. But teachers also face challenges. They sometimes have a lack of time, lack of resources, and lack of support in the classroom. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to develop an online student-directed holistic assessment tool that would help teachers save time in identifying and effectively supporting the diverse needs of all students in inclusive classroom settings and develop motivated, self-regulated learners. Improvement, there was 3 different cycles of testing. It was students in grades 5 to 10 in this study, as well as teachers teaching grades 5 to 10. They were from New Brunswick, Ontario, and Prince Edward Island. Everything was ethically approved. And the sources, I used different sources for different cycles. The first one was I looked at teachers who were interested from the consultation in the first cycle, and then it also obtained some teachers from from an education conference as well as a teacher conference, and then the final cycle is from some educational organizations. And so for the first 2 cycles, I focused on school boards, and the second and third cycle, I included other educational community organizations. In total, 99 students completed the assessment throughout the 3 cycles, and 12 teacher interviews were completed. So it brings us to my third cycle of testing, which was really just focused on the students. I had enough information in the first and second cycle on the teachers, so I focused mostly on the students here. And the first thing I asked the students was, I wanted to understand their experience and how this information might help them fulfill their need for competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And in regards to relatedness, I asked them, what are the ways that the information from the learning plan may help you impact your relationships with the teachers? And this is what they said. It was very obvious that the students felt that the information could help them. In fact, some of them even said they felt that their teachers may have preconceived biases of who they really are, and this information could give them the real picture of who they are, and they appreciated that. And then when it came to competence, we asked, how could the information collected help you improve any academic challenges you had? And here's what they said. So in this particular case, students really looked at their own experiences in doing the assessment, because it was more of an educational assessment as well, and they understood how they learned. And they appreciated, now that they knew how they learned, they understood some of the struggles they may have, and that really helped them make learning easier for them going forward. And finally, autonomy. This was a little bit different. They were asked, how could this experience provide you with more choice in learning? And this is what they said. Quite a different outcome. So we know from the previous experiences that autonomy was important. It was an important fulfilled need, and they had choices when they did the assessment, but they didn't know what to do, how to make these choices real, or what to do when somebody gives them choices. They didn't know. So this really aligned with the teacher's previous comments that maybe they need some guidance. Maybe it's in how to use choice. And it also aligned with Voskam's studies as well, that's saying that, again, maybe depending on their self-regulated learning level, skills learning, they might need more instruction in this area. And this final assessment, this was about the impact, the significance so it was about individuals. It was a within assessment, and that meant that it was looking at individuals within each different group. And the groups that we looked at was all students together, students with different ability levels, and students at different age groups. And within each of those, we looked at the students' pre and post experiences. And so the green, there were variables that are green indicate that that variable had a practical significant difference or large impact on motivation. So it was very meaningful. And then Medium colors meant it was a medium, but it was still a significant income, just a little less significant than the green. And then the yellow was a small significant difference. Again, significant, but again, not as much. And the green and the gray, there was no significant differences found in any of those areas. So what does this mean? So the students who mostly were impacted by teacher cares variable, they were all students. They were students without challenges, and they were students in different grade levels. And this really aligned with the HBSC's study that found as students increase in grade level, their relationship with their teacher declines, and really it's again expressing the importance of strong teacher-student relationships as people transition from middle school to high school. And learning best, how students learn best also had a meaningful impact, especially on students with learning challenges. And again, this aligned with Zimmerman's research that it proposed that as students feel more competent and about their abilities, their competence increases, right? So again, with all those theories. And then finally, choice included the variables of autonomy included the variables of express views and choice. In expressed views, it was most impacted by students with all abilities, as well as those without learning challenges. But choice was very interesting because it really had impact across all categories. And really, so it was really broadly motivating in different ways. And again, it goes back to some studies where, from what we saw before, that students might be impacted by their self-regulated level. And Granberg's study actually had a grade 7 teacher who put in place explicit instruction in self-regulated learning, and they found that choice and there was a significant increase in autonomy and competence. And so this brings me to my final third phase, which is the design principles. And the design principles were based upon Zimmerman's self-regulated learning theory, which includes 3 stages of forethought, performance, and self-reflection. In my assessment, it was just focused on the forethought phase because that was the phase of just finding out the needs before learning. And this included, the first part of it was self-motivation beliefs. Students needed to have belief in themselves and their ability as really one of the beginning steps. And this is done by helping them understand, giving them the opportunity to increase their awareness, and we did that through our academic and cognitive assessments. They also had an opportunity to become engaged through the interactive activities. And they also had an opportunity to do some reflection through teacher feedback and through the assessment itself. The second part of forethought is really having the opportunity to engage in task analysis. And this was done through goal setting. So we had the opportunity in the goal setting module, they had an opportunity to start learning about that. And then in strategic planning, well, that was really all about building the plan in collaboration with the teacher. So as you can see in this diagram, we just started with one part of the theory, but there is opportunity for future research once we start applying those strategies and seeing where they take us, including, and that would take us to performance and self-reflection. And really then eventually they could maybe become self-directed learners. In fact, Boscam study really believed that all students can become self-directed learners, regardless of their ability. And what could be getting in the way could be teachers' biases or their own perceived competence. And finally, that brings me to my recommendations. My recommendations at the beginning, my goal was to find a tool to have teachers save time in efficiently and effectively supporting the needs of diverse students and to help them become self-regulated learners. I believe I did that. The tool is ready, and I recommend that it can be delivered in the best way it could be delivered at over 2 to 3 minimally supervised sessions. That means students can still do it independently, but just if they're in a classroom setting, just to avoid distractions, just have somebody there. And the information that teachers would receive would help them automatically start building those holistic relationships right away. The second thing I recommend is that this tool be used for all students. with and without learning challenges, especially those with invisible learning challenges. It would help reduce stigmatization. And the way it could work is that, first of all, students with learning challenges who have provincial education plans, they could take this information and inform those plans and be more involved in those plans. And those with learning challenges, but they're either invisible or have not been identified, they can take the information and share this with their teachers and hopefully help their teachers use the universal strategies to help them. Again, would be reducing stigmatization because they'd be in the class. And then finally, students without learning challenges can also use the tool to help them develop their self-regulated learning skills. And finally, teachers can also use this tool as a guide to help them start to teach self-regulated skills. And they can do that by enabling student voice, student choice, and really just encouraging students to be more aware of their holistic needs and skills, and eventually help them create their own, being more involved in their action plans.